My brother Carter was handed a luxury car and a VP title, while I was mocked for wearing work boots and driving a battered truck. At a family barbecue, he ridiculed my little gardening job, unaware I'd just closed on my third commercial complex. He threw his drink in a rage, but Grandpa's dark laughter changed everything. This is where the story truly begins, and the secrets I've kept for a decade are about to come out in the most explosive way possible. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the fallout. We're curious. Do you have a golden child in your family? Let us know in the comments. I was sitting in the waiting room of the urgent care clinic, the smell of antiseptic and stale coffee turning my stomach, when the text message came through. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from a mixture of low blood sugar and the searing pain in my lower back. I had just spent 14 hours straight on a job site, overseeing the installation of a massive granite water feature for a tech campus downtown. And I had tweaked a muscle moving a sample slab that an incompetent intern had left in the walkway. I was covered in stone dust. My boots, once high-quality leather, were scuffed and coated in dried mud. My hair was pulled back in a messy, fraying bun, and I probably looked like I hadn't slept in a week, which wasn't far from the truth. I looked down at my phone, the screen cracked in the corner from when I dropped it on a pallet of pavers 2 days ago. The message was from my father, Aaron. "Don't be late to the barbecue today. Big news for Carter. Wear something nice for once. Don't embarrass us." I stared at the words, feeling the familiar burn of humiliation rise in my chest. It wasn't the demand to be on time. It was the assumption that my presence was inherently embarrassing. I was 32 years old, yet to Aaron, I was still the disappointment who liked to play in the dirt rather than get a real degree like my brother. I typed back, my thumbs moving slowly. "At urgent care, hurt my back at work, might be late." The 3 dots appeared instantly. He was typing, then he stopped, then typing again. "Figure it out, Eva. Carter is being named junior partner today. He needs the family united. Stop making everything about your struggles." I let the phone drop into my lap, the plastic casing clattering against the hard denim of my work jeans. My struggles. The nurse called my name, Eva, and I stood up, wincing as a spasm shot up my spine. As I hobbled toward the examination room, my phone buzzed again. It was a notification from my banking app, a scheduled alert I had set up years ago. "Wire transfer complete, $450,000. Escrow closed on property 3. I looked at the notification, then back at my father's text about Carter's promotion. The irony was so sharp it almost tasted like iron in my mouth. My father thought I was struggling to pay rent. He thought my gardening business was a cute, failing hobby. He had no idea that the dirt I played in was currently valued at a cumulative $4 million across 3 prime city locations. I walked into the exam room, sat on the crinkly paper, and closed my eyes. The pain in my back was throbbing, but it was nothing compared to the hollow ache in my chest. I realized then that no matter what I built, no matter how much concrete I poured or how many skylines I altered, to Aaron and Susan, I would always be the failure in work boots. But today felt different. Today, the balance had shifted, even if they didn't know it yet. I looked at my dusty boots and smiled grimly. Carter was getting a title. I was getting an empire. The betrayal wasn't that they didn't love me. It was that they didn't know me at all. And that was about to become their biggest problem. By the time I pulled my truck into my parents' long, winding driveway, the sun was already high and hot, baking the asphalt. I drove a heavy-duty, dually pickup truck, a beast of a vehicle that I needed for hauling equipment and towing trailers. It was scratched, dented, and currently covered in a layer of job site filth. I parked it right next to Carter's gleaming, pearl-white BMW M5. The contrast was almost comical. His car looked like it had never seen a raindrop, let alone a gravel road. It was a symbol of everything our parents valued: pristine, expensive, and flashy. My truck was a symbol of everything they detested: labor, grit, and utility. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I hadn't had time to go home and change. I was still in my dusty jeans and a flannel shirt with a tear in the elbow. I tried to wipe a smudge of grease off my cheek, but only succeeded in smearing it further. "Whatever," I whispered to myself, opening the door and sliding down. "Let them talk." As I walked toward the backyard, I could hear the laughter, the clinking of expensive crystal glasses, the smell of high-end steaks searing on the grill. It was the sound of my family's world, a world W. Here appearances were currency and silence was the price of admission. I rounded the corner of the house and stopped. The entire patio was filled with people, aunties, uncles, cousins, and a few of Aaron's business associates. At the center of it all was Carter. He was wearing a tailored linen suit that probably cost more than my first car. He held a Scotch glass in one hand and was gesturing wildly with the other, recounting some story that had the circle of relatives laughing obsequiously. My mother, Susan, was standing next to him, beaming. She looked radiant, her hand resting possessively on Carter's shoulder, as if physically anchoring herself to his success. My father, Aaron, was at the grill, but his eyes were on Carter, filled with a pride I had never seen directed at me. Not once. Not when I graduated high school, not when I started my LLC, not even when I landed my first six-figure contract, which I hadn't told them about because I knew they wouldn't believe me anyway. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. The pain in my back was a dull roar now, aided by the muscle relaxant the doctor had given me, but the emotional fatigue was heavier. "Eva." The voice cut through the chatter. It was Aunt Linda. She waved me over, her expression a mix of pity and distaste as she scanned my outfit. The conversation circle opened up, and all eyes turned to me. "You made it," Susan said, her smile faltering just a fraction as she took in my dusty boots. "We were worried you wouldn't fit in time to change." "Work ran late," I said, keeping my voice steady, "and I had to stop at the doctor. I hurt my back." "Oh, Eva," Carter said, stepping forward. His voice was smooth, cultured, but laced with that familiar condescension. "Always lifting things too heavy for you. I've told you you should look into a desk job. Dad could probably find you something in the mailroom. Save your back." The group chuckled, a low, polite ripple of laughter at my expense. "I like what I do, Carter," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm sure you do," he said, taking a sip of his drink. "It's very grounded, earthy." He winked at Aaron, who smirked. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, but I clamped my mouth shut. I reached into my pocket and touched the cold metal of my truck keys. They saw a laborer. They saw a woman who couldn't cut it in the corporate world. They didn't know that the heavy things I was lifting were the foundations of their city's newest luxury districts. And they certainly didn't know about the legal folder tucked under the passenger seat of my truck, the one containing the foreclosure notice on the very building Carter's new office was located in. I was currently negotiating to buy the debt on that property. They had forgotten one crucial thing. When you spend your life looking down on people, you never notice when they start building the ground up to meet you. To understand why that moment in the garden stung so badly, you have to understand the history of the golden child dynamic in our house. It wasn't just that Carter was favored. It was that his success was manufactured while my struggles were ignored. When I was in college, studying landscape architecture and civil engineering, I worked 3 jobs. I waited tables at a diner, I did freelance drafting for a local contractor, and on weekends, I actually did mow lawns to pay for my textbooks. When I asked Aaron for help with my tuition during a particularly tight semester, he gave me a lecture on fiscal responsibility and building character. He told me that handouts create weakness. 6 months later, when Carter crashed his brand new BMW, the one Aaron bought him for his 18th birthday, Aaron didn't just replace the car. He hired a high-priced lawyer to make sure the DUI charge disappeared, costing the family tens of thousands of dollars. When I pointed out the disparity, Susan cried. She told me I was being unsupportive and that Carter was going through a hard time. Carter's hard times always looked remarkably like vacations. Now, standing on the patio, watching him preen, I felt the weight of 10 years of silence. Carter wasn't just spoiled, he was dangerous. He was the kind of man who believed he was born to rule, but had never learned how to lead. So, Carter said, turning his attention back to the group, effectively dismissing me. The new role is going to be challenging, of course. Director of marketing is a big step up from consultant, but Dad knows I have the vision for it. We're thinking of rebranding the entire firm. New logo, new website, new energy. It's going to be fantastic, Susan gushed. You've always had such an eye for style, Carter. We're going to modernize, Aaron added, flipping a steak. The old ways are dying, we need fresh blood. I walked over to a cooler and grabbed a bottle of water, trying to make myself invisible. I noticed Grandpa Arthur sitting in the corner, under the shade of the large oak TR. He was the only one not hovering around Carter. He sat in his wheelchair, a plate of potato salad balanced on his knees, watching the scene with hawk-like intensity. Grandpa Arthur had founded the family business 40 years ago. He was a hard man, a man of few words, and Aaron had forced him into retirement 5 years ago. Since then, the company's profits had stagnated, though Aaron blamed the economy. I walked over to Grandpa. Hey, Grandpa, mind if I sit? He looked up at me, his blue eyes sharp and clear amidst the wrinkles. He looked at my dusty boots, then up to my face. He didn't sneer. He didn't offer pity. He just nodded. Dirt suits you better than bullshit suits them, he grumbled, his voice low and raspy. I stifled a laugh. Be nice. I'm old, he said. I don't have to be nice, I just have to be right. He gestured toward Carter with his fork. Look at him. Peacock. Doesn't know the difference between revenue and profit. Thinks a business card makes him a businessman. He's getting a promotion, I said neutrally. He's getting a title, Grandpa corrected. Aaron is giving him the reins to a horse that's already limping. They think I don't read the quarterly reports just because I don't come into the office anymore. This was news to me. I knew the company wasn't booming, but I didn't know it was struggling. Just then, Carter strolled over to us, his entourage of cousins trailing behind. He looked down at me, then at Grandpa. Grandpa, you look comfortable, Carter said, a smirk playing on his lips. Eva, didn't anyone tell you to wash up? You look like you just crawled out of a ditch. I came straight from a site, Carter, I said, keeping my voice calm. Right, the gardening, he laughed. He leaned in, lowering his voice conspiratorially, though loud enough for everyone to hear. Hey, seriously though, Eva, if you need money, just ask Dad. You don't have to embarrass us by showing up looking like the help. It's bad for the brand. He took a sip of his scotch, his eyes glinting with malice. He wasn't just arrogant, he was cruel. He enjoyed the contrast between us. He needed me to be the failure so he could be the success. I don't need money, Carter, I said quietly. Sure, he said, waving a hand dismissively. That's what they all say, but hey, good news. Since I'm director now, I'm going to need some landscaping done at my new place. The condo Dad bought me downtown, the terrace needs work. I'll hire you. Friends and family discount. He looked around at the cousins, waiting for the laugh. It came right on cue. My grip tightened on the water bottle. The plastic crinkled loudly. He was talking about the Obsidian Tower condos. I knew them well. I had bid on the contract to redesign their lobby interior last month. I'm pretty booked up, Carter, I said. Booked with what? Trimming Mrs. Higgins' hedges? He laughed again, a sharp, barking sound. Come on, Eva, don't be proud, take the charity. That was the moment. The exact moment the dam began to crack. He wasn't just insulting me, he was trying to erase me. He was trying to reduce my decade of blood, sweat, and tears into a punchline for his ego. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the fear behind his eyes, the desperation to be adored, and I realized he was fragile. One tap and he would shatter. I'm not expensive because I'm proud, Carter, I said, my voice dropping an octave, becoming dead serious. I'm expensive because I'm the best, and frankly, you can't afford me. The silence that followed was instant. The cousins stopped laughing. Susan gasped from the nearby table. Carter's smile froze, his eyes narrowing into slits. "Excuse me," he hissed. Grandpa Arthur let out a soft, dry chuckle. "She told you, boy, check your wallet." Carter blinked, his face flushing a deep, blotchy red. For a second, I thought he might actually hit me. The air on the patio had turned thick and suffocating. "I can't afford you," Carter repeated, his voice rising in pitch. "I make more in a month than you make in a year, Eva. Don't delude yourself." Aaron stepped in then, sensing the tension. "All right, that's enough," he said, shooting a warning glare at me. "Eva, don't start trouble. Carter was just trying to be nice." "Nice?" I started to argue, but I stopped myself. There was no point. They had their narrative. I was the bitter, unsuccessful sister. Nothing I said right now would change that. I stood up, wincing slightly as my back protested. "I'm going to get some ice for my back," I said, and walked toward the house, leaving the silence hanging heavy behind me. As I entered the cool, air-conditioned kitchen, I leaned against the granite island and took a deep breath. My hands were shaking again, this time from adrenaline. I had poked the bear. I pulled out my phone. I had a missed call from my real estate attorney, David. I called him back immediately. "Eva," David's voice was crisp and professional. "We have a situation with the purchase of the debt on the commercial building downtown, the one at 405 West." My heart skipped a beat. 405 West was the building where my father's company and Carter's new office was located. It was a poorly kept secret in the local real estate circles that the building's owner was underwater and looking to liquidate assets quickly. I had been quietly positioning myself to buy the note from the bank for months. "What kind of situation?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Another bidder sniffed around," David said, "but they backed out when they saw the structural reports. The foundation issues you identified, they scared everyone else off. The bank is ready to sign over the note to you. They just need the wire by Monday morning." I closed my eyes, a wave of relief washing over me. "The wire is already set up, David. Do it." "Excellent, congratulations, Eva. You're about to own a city block." I hung up, my heart pounding against my ribs. I wasn't just buying a building. I was buying leverage. The building my father rented, the office Carter was so proud of. If the deal went through on Monday, I would technically be their landlord. I looked out the kitchen window. Carter was back to holding court, laughing loudly, his arm draped over a cousin's shoulder. He looked so secure, so untouchable. I scrolled through my emails and found the due diligence report on the building. I opened the tenant file. RE Dynamics, my father's company. I scanned the lease agreement. It was set to expire in 3 months. They had no renewal option locked in. They were on a month-to-month holdover because Aaron had been too cheap to commit to a long-term lease rate increase last year. I had them, but I needed more. If I was going to make a move, I needed to know exactly how fragile their position was. I remembered Grandpa Arthur's comment about the quarterly reports. I slipped out of the kitchen and down the hallway to my father's home office. The door was unlocked. I knew Aaron kept physical copies of everything. He didn't trust the cloud. I went to the filing cabinet, my heart racing. I found the file marked RE Dynamics FY 2025 financials. I flipped it open. The numbers were bleeding red. Revenue was down 40%. Client retention was abysmal. And there, in the expense column, were massive, unexplained outlays labeled consulting fees C. Sterling. C. Sterling, Carter. Aaron was funneling company money to Carter under the guise of consulting fees on top of his salary. And looking at the cash flow, the company was barely making payroll. I snapped a picture of the document with my phone. "What are you doing?" I spun around. Susan was standing in the doorway, holding a tray of appetizers. Her face was pale. "Mom," I said, quickly sliding the file back into the drawer. "I was just looking for some aspirin." She walked into the room, setting the tray down on the desk with a clatter. In the filing cabinet? She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and accusation. You're snooping, Eva. Why can't you just be happy for him? Happy for him? I whispered, the anger bubbling up. Mom, look at this. Dad is draining the company to pay Carter. They're losing money. Stop it, she hissed. You don't understand business, Eva. You dig holes for a living. Leave the finances to your father and brother. I own 3 properties, Mom, I blurted out. I manage a portfolio worth millions. I know how to read a balance sheet. Susan looked at me, her expression blank. She blinked once, twice. Then she shook her head, a sad, pitying smile forming on her lips. Oh, honey, she said softly. You don't have to lie to me. I know things are hard, but making up stories. It worries me. She didn't believe me. She literally could not conceive of a reality where I was successful. Come outside, she said, her voice firm again, and apologize to your brother. You upset him. I stared at her. The gaslighting was so complete, so absolute, it was almost impressive. Okay, I said, my voice cold. I'll come out. I didn't need her to believe me. I had the photos. I had the bank confirmation. And on Monday, I would have the deed. I walked back out to the patio. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. The atmosphere had shifted. The party was winding down, and people were settling into their chairs for coffee and dessert. Carter was sitting at the head of the main table, looking like a king on his throne. Aaron was next to him, lighting a cigar. Ah, she returns, Carter announced as I approached. Found some ice, or were you crying in the bathroom? A few cousins snickered. I didn't sit down. I stood at the end of the table, my hands clasped behind my back to hide the tremor. Actually, Carter, I said, my voice projecting clearly across the yard. I was on the phone with my attorney. Aaron frowned, taking the cigar out of his M. Outh, attorney, what kind of trouble are you in now, Eva? No trouble, Dad, just closing a deal. Carter rolled his eyes. Buying a new lawnmower, did you need a payment plan? I'm buying the note on 405 West, I said. The silence was instant. It wasn't the polite silence from before. It was the silence of confusion. Aaron froze. What did you say? 405 West, I repeated, enunciating every syllable. The building where your office is located. The bank accepted my offer this morning. As of Monday, I'll be the new owner of the debt. Aaron laughed. It was a nervous, incredulous sound. That's a commercial building, Eva. It's worth millions. You can't even afford rent on a decent apartment. I own my apartment, I said calmly, and the duplex on 4th Street, and the warehouse district renovation project, and now your building. Carter slammed his glass down. Bullshit, you're lying. You're just jealous because I'm a partner now and you're nothing. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened the email from David. I walked over to Aaron and held the screen in front of his face. Read it, Dad. Escrow instructions. Buyer, Eva Sterling, LLC. Purchase price, $2.4 million. Aaron stared at the screen. His face went gray. The cigar fell from his fingers onto the grass, smoldering. How? He whispered. Where did you get this money? I worked, I said. I invested. I built my business while you were busy buying Carter BMWs and paying his legal fees. You can't do this, Carter stammered, standing up. He looked panicked. That's my building, my new office is there. It's a building with significant foundation issues, I said, looking directly at Carter. Which is why the previous owner was selling. Issues that, as the new landlord, I will need to address, which means the building will likely be condemned for renovations for at least 6 months. Condemned, Aaron choked out. We have a business to run. You can't just shut us down. I checked your lease, Dad, I said, my voice hardening. You're month to month. I can give you 30 days notice, and considering the structural liability, I might have to. You little witch, Susan screamed, jumping up from her chair. How could you? Your own family, you'd ruin your brother's big moment for this fantasy. It's not a fantasy, Mom, I yelled back, losing my cool for the first time. It's a legal contract, and it's not about ruining his moment. It's about the fact that you've been funneling company money into his pockets for years while the business circles the drain. I held up the phone again, showing the photo of the financial report. Consulting fees, Dad? Really? $15,000 a month to a brand consultant who doesn't even show up until noon. The guests were staring, mouths agape. The veneer of the perfect family was shattering in real time. "That's internal company data," Carter shouted. "You stole that, I'll sue you." "Sue me with what money, Carter?" I shot back. "The company is broke, I saw the cash flow, you're insolvent." Carter looked around wildly, his face twisting into an ugly sneer. "She's lying, she's crazy, she's always been jealous of me. Dad, tell them she's lying." But Aaron didn't speak. He was slumped in his chair, staring at the table, the reality of his financial ruin and his daughter's sudden power crashing down on him. "You're a gardener," Carter screamed, desperate now. "You dig in the dirt, you're nothing." "I'm your landlord," I said coldly, "and rent is due on the 1st. The fallout was immediate and chaotic. Susan was sobbing hysterically, clinging to Carter's arm. The guests were hurriedly gathering their things, muttering excuses about needing to leave. It was a mass exodus. Carter, realizing his director title was currently meaningless if there was no office to direct from, tried a different tactic. He lunged across the table. "You think you're so smart," he spat, his face inches from mine. "You think you can just buy us out. Dad built this company, it's his legacy, it's my legacy." "It's a failing legacy, Carter," I said, not backing down. "And you're the one who drained it." "I'll destroy you," he hissed. "I know people. I'll have your little LLC buried in lawsuits so fast you won't know what hit you. I'll tell everyone you're a fraud. I'll ruin your reputation in this town." "Go ahead," I said. "My reputation is built on concrete and steel. Yours is built on Dad's credit card." "Carter, sit down," Aaron finally barked. He looked aged, defeated. He looked up at me with eyes that were no longer dismissive but fearful. "Eva, we need to talk, privately." "No secrets," I said. "Not anymore. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of everyone who's left." Only a few people remained, mostly close family who were too shocked to move, and Grandpa Arthur. "You're making a mistake," Aaron said, his voice trembling. "If you evict us, the company folds, we have Conter. Axe, we have clients, you'll destroy the family." "You destroyed the family when you decided one child was a prince and the other was a servant," I said. "I'm just balancing the books." "We can work something out," Aaron pleaded. We can make you a partner, a silent partner." "I don't want to be a partner in a sinking ship, Dad. I want the building. I'm going to renovate it, fix the foundation, and turn it into high-end mixed-use retail. I have the blueprints already drawn up." You planned this," Susan wailed. "You've been plotting against us." "I was planning my business," I corrected. "You just happened to be in the way." Carter, seeing his father crumble, lost it completely. "I'm not leaving. That's my office. I have my things there. I have. He stopped, his eyes darting side to side. I caught the look. Panic, real panic. "What do you have there, Carter?" I asked, my intuition flaring. "What's in the office that you're so afraid of me finding?" "Nothing," he shouted too quickly. "Just personal effects." I looked at him and suddenly pieces started to click. The consulting fees, the debt, the desperation. "You're hiding something else," I said slowly. "It's not just the salary, is it? What else have you been doing with the company accounts?" "Shut up." Carter grabbed his empty glass and hurled it. It shattered against the stone patio pavers near my feet, shards of crystal exploding outward. "Carter," Susan shrieked. "She's a liar," Carter screamed, his veins bulging in his neck. "She's trying to steal everything from me. I'm the heir, me." He was unraveling. The polished, golden boy was gone, replaced by a frightened, violent child. "I'm calling the police," Aunt Linda whispered from the corner, clutching her purse. "No police," Aaron shouted. "We handle this as a family." Family, I laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. Now we're family, when you need me to save you from him. I pointed at Carter. He's not protecting the company, Dad. He's protecting himself. I'm going to audit the building's books the moment I take possession. Every invoice, every expense. Carter turned white. You can't, tenant privacy. Not if I suspect criminal activity on my property, I said, and I suspect plenty. That was the nail in the coffin. Carter looked at Aaron, pleading silently. But Aaron was staring at his son, seeing the fear, the guilt, the sheer terror in his eyes. And for the first time, Aaron looked like he was actually seeing Carter. Carter, Aaron said slowly, what did you do? Nothing, Carter sobbed. I borrowed some against the future receivables to pay off the cards. I was going to put it back. Borrowed against receivables? Aaron stood up, his face turning purple. You leveraged the client contracts. That's embezzlement, Carter. That's fraud. I had to, Carter cried. The gambling, the guys were going to break my legs. The silence that fell over the patio was heavy enough to crush bone. Gambling debts. Embezzlement. The golden child wasn't just a failure, he was a criminal. And then from the corner, a dry, raspy laugh cut through the air. Grandpa Arthur's laugh was low at first, a rattling sound in his chest, before it grew into a full, barking guffaw that echoed across the silent patio. He slapped his knee, tears of mirth gathering in his eyes. Finally, Grandpa wheezed. The truth comes out. I've been waiting 5 years for this moment. Everyone turned to him. Carter was sobbing into his hands. Susan was frozen in shock. Aaron looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Dad, Aaron whispered, you find this funny. Funny, Grandpa wheeled himself forward, his face suddenly serious, the laughter vanishing as quickly as it had come. I find it inevitable, Aaron. You built a house of cards on a foundation of sand, and you're surprised it collapsed. I told you not to hand him the keys. I told you the boy had no spine. He turned his sharp blue eyes on Carter. Gambling debts, leveraging contracts, you're not a businessman, son, you're a liability. I can fix it, Carter blubbered. I just need a loan. Grandpa, you have money, you can help me. Help you? Grandpa scoffed. I wouldn't give you a dime to buy a gumball. You think I didn't know? You think I'm just a senile old man in the corner. He reached into the side pocket of his wheelchair and pulled out a thick, folded document. He tossed it onto the table. It landed with a heavy thwack. That, Grandpa said, pointing a gnarled finger at the document, is the trust amendment I signed 6 months ago. The one where I removed you, Carter, and you, Aaron, as the beneficiaries of my estate. Aaron gasped, What, Dad, you can't, the company, the legacy. The company is dead, Grandpa said bluntly. You killed it, and the legacy is sitting right there. He pointed at me. Eva, Susan whispered. She's the only one of you wit. Any sense? Grandpa said, looking at me with a mixture of pride and something softer. She didn't ask for handouts. She didn't whine. She built something real. While you were playing pretend executive, she was out there pouring concrete. He looked back at Aaron. I've been watching her, Aaron. I know about the properties. I know about the LLC. I even know about the time she paid for your anniversary dinner anonymously because your credit card was declined and you didn't want Susan to know. My eyes widened. I hadn't known he knew that. Eva is the beneficiary, Grandpa announced. Everything. The remaining stocks, the land in the county, the personal accounts, it all goes to her. No, Carter screamed, lunging for the document. That's mine, it's not fair. Grandpa slammed his hand down on the table, faster than I thought possible, pinning the document. Fair? You want fair? Fair is working for what you get. Fair is consequences. He looked at me. Eva, you own the debt on the building. Yes, Grandpa, I said, my voice steady. Good, he nodded. Foreclose on them, evict them, burn it down if you have to, but don't you dare bail them out. That's my only condition. I looked at my father. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the ground, a broken man. The illusion of his perfect son and his successful business had been stripped away in the span of 10 minutes. "It's over, Dad," I said softly. "The enabling stops today." Carter was hyperventilating now, realizing his safety net was gone. But what am I going to do? The debts, the guys. "I suggest you start looking for a job," Grandpa said. "I hear there's good money in digging ditches. Eva might even hire you, if you're qualified." The irony hung in the air, heavy and sweet. "I won't hire him," I said. "He's a liability." And with those words, I finally, truly cut the cord. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings and logistical nightmares, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't navigating them alone. Grandpa Arthur was by my side, figuratively, and often literally, rolling into meetings with my lawyers to offer his unsolicited but often brilliant advice. I served the eviction notice on RE Dynamics the following Monday. Aaron tried to fight it for a week, then gave up when the forensic accountants confirmed the embezzlement. The company filed for bankruptcy a month later. Carter's fall was less graceful. Without the company's salary and the consulting fees, his debts caught up with him fast. The BMW was repossessed. His condo went into foreclosure. Last I heard, he was living in Susan's sewing room, working part-time at a car wash and dodging calls from collection agencies. He tried to reach out to me once, asking for a small loan to get back on his feet. I blocked the number. Aaron and Susan are adjusting. Susan still cries a lot, mourning the image of the family she thought she had. Aaron is quiet. He works as a consultant for a small firm now, a real job with a boss who holds him accountable. We have Sunday dinner sometimes. It's awkward, but it's honest. There's no more preening, no more lies. He looks at me differently now, not with love exactly. I think his pride is too wounded for that, but with respect and fear. As for me, I bought the building. I gutted it. I reinforced the foundation, stripped the rot, and rebuilt it from the ground up. I'm standing in the penthouse suite right now, my new office. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the city skyline that I helped shape. The sign on the door says Sterling Development Group. Grandpa Arthur is sitting by the window, watching the sunset. "Nice view," he says. "It is," I agree. "You did good, kid," he grunts. "You did good." I look at my reflection in the glass. I'm not wearing dusty boots today. I'm wearing a tailored suit and heels. But underneath, I'm still the same person. The person who knows the value of dirt. The person who knows that you can't build a skyscraper without digging a hole first. I turned away from the window and smiled. "Ready for dinner, Grandpa? I'm buying." He chuckled. "You better be, you're the rich one now." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to correct him. I just laughed, pushed his wheelchair toward the elevator, and went to enjoy the life I had built, brick by brick.